They fired me at 55, after I'd built their entire system from the ground up for 12 years. Gave me 4 hours to pack my things and complete my exit paperwork. I followed every single protocol, exactly as written. 3 weeks later, their entire operation went dark. $40 million in contracts hung in the balance, and I was the only person on earth who could fix it. But here's the paradox. The more perfectly I'd followed their rules on my way out, the more catastrophically I'd locked them out. They thought they were protecting themselves. They actually destroyed themselves, and I never broke a single rule. My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 55 years old, and I just got paid $47,000 to unlock a company from their own security protocols. The same company that fired me 3 weeks earlier. Let me take you back to where this started, because the beautiful irony of this situation didn't happen by accident. It happened because corporations write policies to protect themselves from employees, but they never imagine those policies being followed perfectly. I started at Titanfall Manufacturing in March of 2012. I was 43 then, coming off a rough layoff from my previous job during the recession. Titanfall was hiring for a senior IT infrastructure specialist, and I needed work. The company made precision aerospace components, the kind of parts that go into commercial aircraft, critical stuff, high tolerances, serious contracts with Boeing, Airbus, and defense contractors, about 400 employees across 3 facilities. Corporate headquarters in Phoenix, manufacturing plants in Phoenix and Tucson. When I arrived, their IT infrastructure was held together with duct tape and prayers. They had an IT department of 2 people, a CTO who was really just an operations manager with a technical background, and a help desk kid fresh out of community college, who knew how to reset passwords and not much else. Their servers were ancient. Their network was a mess. Their data backup strategy was hope nothing breaks. Their security was non-existent. I found passwords written on sticky notes attached to monitors. I spent my first 6 months just doing triage, replaced failing servers, redesigned the network architecture, implemented actual backup systems, set up proper security protocols, created documentation for everything. By year 2, I'd built them a modern, redundant, secure infrastructure that could actually support a manufacturing operation handling government contracts. Cloud-based systems with local redundancy, encrypted communications, multi-factor authentication, automated backups to multiple locations, the works. I wasn't just maintaining systems. I was building the digital backbone of a 400-person company from scratch. And they appreciated it. For a while. My reviews were excellent. My boss, the CTO, a guy named Richard, trusted me completely. I got steady raises, made it to $94,000 a year by 2020, which was decent for Phoenix. I trained 3 junior IT people over the years, good kids, learned fast, but I was the architect. The one who understood how all the pieces fit together. I knew every server, every network segment, every integration point, every workaround for every weird legacy system we couldn't quite retire. I was the institutional knowledge. And that felt good. Secure. Important. I planned to retire from Titanfall. Maybe stick around until 65, then take my pension and disappear into a fishing boat somewhere. That was the plan. Then October 2023 happened. The acquisition. Titanfall was acquired by a private equity firm called Convergent Capital Partners. If you've ever worked for a company that got bought by private equity, you know exactly where this story is going. They announced it at an all-hands meeting. Our CEO, who'd founded the company 30 years ago, stood at the front of the room looking like he'd aged a decade overnight. "This is an exciting opportunity for growth," he said, reading from notes someone else had written. "Convergent Capital Partners sees tremendous potential in Titanfall, and they're committed to helping us reach the next level." The next level, that's always what they say. What they mean is, we're going to strip this company for parts and extract every dollar of value before it collapses. But nobody says that part out loud. The Convergent people showed up 2 weeks later. Young guys in expensive suits with MBAs from schools I'd never heard of. They smiled a lot and used words like synergy and optimization and operational efficiency. Lots of meetings. Discovery sessions where they asked detailed questions about every department. How many people, what they did, how much they cost. Whether we really needed all of them. I sat through one of these sessions in January 2024. A Convergent analyst couldn't have been older than 28. Asked me to explain our IT infrastructure. I walked him through it, the servers, the network, the security, the backup systems, the integrations with manufacturing equipment, the compliance requirements for aerospace contracts. He took notes on his iPad and nodded occasionally. Then he asked the question, how many people does it take to maintain all this? Right now, 4 people. Me, 2 junior admins, and a help desk specialist. That seems like a lot for a company this size. We support 400 employees across 3 physical locations, plus remote workers. We maintain 24/7 uptime for manufacturing systems that can't go down. We handle security compliance for government contracts. 4 people is actually pretty lean. Have you considered outsourcing? There it was. Outsourcing IT for a manufacturing operation with defense contracts is complicated, I said carefully. Security requirements alone make it difficult, plus we need people who understand our specific systems. He smiled. There are managed service providers who specialize in exactly this kind of environment. I knew where this was heading, but I played along. Sure, though the transition would be risky. There's a lot of institutional knowledge built into our current setup. Me, Richard the CTO, and 1 junior admin named Mike. April, they laid off Mike. 2 people left to support the entire IT infrastructure for a 400-person manufacturing company with government contracts. I was working 70-hour weeks, handling everything from server maintenance to helping someone figure out why their email wasn't working. I told Richard I was burning out. I know, he said. He looked exhausted too. I'm fighting for a budget to hire replacements. They keep saying no. Just hang in there. I hung in there. May 15th, they laid off Richard. My boss. The person who actually understood how critical IT infrastructure was to a manufacturing operation. They replaced him with a virtual CTO, some consultant who worked remotely and had never even visited our facilities. I was now the only person in the entire company who actually understood our systems. 1 person, supporting 400 employees, maintaining 24/7 manufacturing operations, handling security compliance for defense contracts. It was insane. But I kept going because I'm 55 years old and finding a new job at my age isn't easy. I needed the paycheck. I needed health insurance. So I worked 80-hour weeks and told myself it was temporary. Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. 9:30 a.m. I got a calendar invite from HR. Meeting with Daniel Hayes. Urgent. 10 a.m. time slot. Attendees. HR Director. Operations Director. Virtual CTO. On video call. I knew. I walked into that conference room at 10 o'clock a.m. sharp. The HR Director, a woman named Patricia who I'd worked with for 12 years, couldn't look me in the eye. The Operations Director was some convergent guy named Mitchell, who'd been with the company for maybe 3 months. The virtual CTO was a tiny face on a laptop screen, sitting in a home office 1,000 miles away. Daniel, thank you for coming, Patricia started, her voice tight. We need to discuss some organizational changes. I said nothing. Just wait. Mitchell jumped in. Daniel, we appreciate your 12 years of service to Titanfall. You've built tremendous systems here. But we've made the strategic decision to transition IT services to a managed service provider. This will allow us to reduce fixed costs while maintaining service levels. Corporate speak for, you're fired and we think some random MSP company can do your job cheaper. Your last day will be today, Patricia said. We're offering 4 weeks of severance pay, plus your accrued vacation time. We'll need you to complete the exit process before 5 o'clock p.m. today. Today. 4 hours to wrap up 12 years. The virtual CTO spoke up from the laptop. Daniel, we've contracted with Secure IT Solutions as our new MSP. They're excellent. They'll be taking over next Monday. We need you to document everything and provide them with access credentials during the transition. I sat there processing this. 12 years. I built everything from scratch. I was working 80-hour weeks, holding this place together after they'd fired everyone else. And now I am done. Same day notice. 4 hours to pack up my entire professional life. Do you have any questions? Patricia asked. What happens between now and Monday? Who's covering IT if I'm gone today, and the MSP doesn't start until Monday? Mitchell waved his hand dismissively. The MSP has 24/7 emergency support. Anything critical can be handled remotely. It's only 5 days. Only 5 days. In a manufacturing operation that runs 24/7, with systems that can't go down. These people had no idea what they were doing. Okay, I said. What do you need from me? Patricia slid a thick packet of paper across the table. This is our IT exit protocol checklist. It needs to be completed before you leave today. Security will escort you out at 5 p.m. I picked up the packet and started reading. The IT exit protocol packet was comprehensive. Paranoid even. 37 pages of requirements, checklists, and legal language. It had been written years ago. I vaguely remembered when. Some IT contractor had left the company and allegedly stolen confidential data. Legal had freaked out and created this massive exit protocol to prevent it from happening again. I'd never actually read it before, never needed to. I wasn't planning on leaving. But now I read every word carefully. The protocols were divided into sections. Section 1, Access Revocation. All system access credentials must be changed immediately upon separation. Employees must personally execute all password changes and credential revocations before leaving the premises. All changes must be documented according to company security policy. Section 2, Knowledge Transfer. Employees must provide complete documentation of all systems, including but not limited to network architecture, server configurations, security protocols, vendor relationships, and access credentials. All documentation must be stored in company-approved secure locations. Section 3, Data Protection. All company data must be secured and protected. Employees must verify that all passwords and access credentials are properly encrypted and stored. No company information may be removed from premises or retained by employees. Section 4, Equipment Return. All company equipment must be returned, including computers, phones, access cards, keys, and any other company property. All devices must be wiped of personal data. Standard stuff, mostly. Protect the company, prevent data theft, ensure continuity. But as I read more carefully, I started noticing something interesting. The protocols were written by lawyers who didn't understand IT infrastructure. They were focused entirely on preventing employees from taking something or sabotaging something. But they didn't consider what would happen if someone followed the protocols exactly. I read Section 1 again. Employees must personally execute all password changes. All changes must be documented according to company security policy. Our company security policy required all passwords to be stored in an encrypted password management system, which I'd set up 6 years ago, which required admin access to open. I read Section 2 again. All documentation must be stored in company-approved secure locations. Our documentation was stored on an internal wiki system, which I'd built, which was hosted on internal servers, which required VPN access to reach. I started to see the shape of what was about to happen, and I made a decision. I was going to follow these protocols perfectly, exactly as written, to the letter. Not because I wanted revenge, but because after 12 years of loyal service, after 80-hour weeks holding this place together, after watching them fire everyone around me and then firing me with 4 hours notice, they were going to get exactly what they asked for. I left the conference room at 10:45 a.m. with the exit protocol packet in my hands. I had until 5 p.m. to complete 37 pages of requirements, 6 hours and 15 minutes to dismantle 12 years of work. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and started working through the checklist methodically. Patricia had assigned someone from HR to assist with my exit, a young guy named Kevin, who clearly drew the short straw. He sat nearby, looking uncomfortable, while I worked. "Just let me know if you need anything," he mumbled. "I will," I said pleasantly. I started with Section 1, Access Revocation. The protocol was explicit. Employees must personally change all system passwords and access credentials immediately. All changes must be logged and documented per company security policy. I opened our password management system, an enterprise-grade encrypted vault I'd implemented in 2018. Then I began systematically changing every single password in our infrastructure. Server administrator passwords, network equipment credentials, cloud service accounts, database access, VPN configurations, email server, file servers, backup systems, the works. For each system, I generated a new random password, 32 characters, numbers, letters, special characters. Completely random strings that would be impossible to guess or remember. That kind of thing, and I documented each one carefully in the password vault, exactly as the security policy required. Then I changed the master password to the vault itself, another random 32-character string. I documented the new master password in the vault's recovery system, which I'd configured years ago to require admin access to retrieve, admin access that I was about to revoke. Kevin wandered over around noon. "How's it going?" "Good, about halfway through the access revocation checklist. This is detailed work." "Lunch?" "I'm fine, thanks." He left me alone. I continued working through the protocols. By 2 p.m., I'd changed every password in every system we had. Our entire infrastructure was now secured with passwords that only existed in an encrypted vault. A vault that required the master password to open. A master password that I just changed to a random string I hadn't memorized and had documented inside the vault itself. Beautiful. Next, Protocol Section 1.2. Revoke all administrative access rights for separating employees. I logged into our Active Directory, the system that controlled user permissions across our entire network. I found my own account, Daniel.Hayes, and I systematically removed every elevated permission I had. Domain administrator rights? Removed. Removed. Network equipment administration? Removed. Cloud platform admin roles? Removed. Security system access? Removed. I was thorough. By the time I finished, my account had the same access level as a brand new intern. I couldn't access anything important anymore. Perfect. Section 2. Knowledge transfer. I moved on to the knowledge transfer requirements. Employees must provide complete documentation of all systems. All documentation must be stored in company-approved secure locations. I've been documenting everything for 12 years. Network diagrams, server configurations, security protocols, troubleshooting guides, vendor contact information, everything. All of it lived on our internal wiki system, a comprehensive knowledge base I built and maintained over the years. The wiki was hosted on one of our internal servers, accessible only through our internal network or VPN. The protocol required me to provide access to this documentation, so I did. I created a detailed document listing every piece of documentation and exactly where it was located. 47 different wiki pages, all carefully cataloged. Every URL points to our internal wiki system, the internal system that required network access to reach. Network access that required VPN credentials. VPN credentials that were now stored in the password vault. The password vault that required the master password. The master password that only existed inside the encrypted vault itself. Are you starting to see the problem? I attached this documentation list to my exit paperwork and checked off Section 2 as complete. 3. Data protection. P. Rare. Section 3 was all about making sure I didn't take company data with me. P. Rare. P. Employees must verify all company passwords and credentials are properly secured and encrypted. No company information may be removed from premises. P. Rare. P. I verified that all passwords were indeed secured in our encrypted password management system. Check. P. Rare. P. I verified that all documentation was stored on company servers, not on any personal devices. Check. P. Rare. P. I confirmed I wasn't taking any company data with me. Check. P. Rare. P. I was being very careful. The last thing I needed was them claiming I'd stolen something. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be, secured, encrypted, protected. P. Rare. P. Just completely inaccessible without access credentials that were themselves locked inside systems that required credentials.
Section 4. Equipment return. At 4 p.m., I started the final section. I factory reset my company laptop. Wiped it completely clean. I factory reset my company phone. Deleted everything. I gathered my access badge, my key card for the server room, my building keys, and my parking pass. I put everything in a neat pile on my desk. Then I packed up my personal items. Photos of my kids, a coffee mug, a sweater. 12 years of personal effects fit into one cardboard box. At 4:45 p.m., I walked to HR with the completed exit protocol packet. Patricia reviewed it carefully. You've completed everything? 47 checklist items, all done exactly as specified. And the MSP will have access to everything they need? All documentation is exactly where it's supposed to be, per the protocols. All passwords are secured in the password management system, per security policy. Everything is properly encrypted and protected. She seemed satisfied. Okay, thank you, Daniel. I'm sorry it ended this way. I almost believe she meant it. At 5 p.m., a security guard I'd known for 8 years escorted me to my car. Sorry, man, he said quietly as we walked through the parking lot. This is bullshit. It is what it is. I drove home in a weird state of calm. 12 years, gone. but I'd followed every single protocol perfectly. I hadn't sabotaged anything. I hadn't taken anything. I'd just done exactly what they asked. Exactly. That first week was strange. I'd worked 80-hour weeks for months. Suddenly I had nothing but time. I slept late. I organized my garage. I updated my resume without much enthusiasm. Finding IT work at 55 isn't easy. Friday afternoon, 5 days after my exit, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Hello? Daniel. Finally, it was Mitchell, the operations director. He sounded panicked. We've been trying to reach you all day. My company phone was returned during my exit, I said calmly. This is my personal number. Right. Listen, we have a situation. The email server went down this morning and nobody can get it back online. We need you to walk the MSP through the access. I don't work there anymore. I understand, but this is an emergency. 300 people can't access email. We'll pay you consulting rates. We just need the admin credentials for the email server. I changed all credentials during my exit process per the protocols. They should be in the password management system. The MSP can't access the password management system. That's unfortunate. Did someone change the access credentials after I left? No, they're saying they need the master password, and nobody has it. I let that sit for a moment. The master password was documented per security policy during my exit. It should be in the Vault's recovery system. How do they access the recovery system? That requires administrative access to the password vault. I could almost hear the gears turning. Daniel, we need that master password. I don't have it anymore. I generated a random string and documented it in the system, exactly as the protocols required. I don't remember it. You don't remember it? His voice was rising. It was a 32-character random string. Nobody could remember that. That's why we document them in the system. The system we can't access. That does seem problematic, I agreed. Is there anything else? I'm actually in the middle of something. Daniel, please. We'll pay you whatever you want. We just need to get email back online. I appreciate that, but I don't have access to your systems anymore. I revoked my own access during the exit process. Per protocol, section 1.2. I could hear him breathing heavily. This is insane. It's what the exit protocols required. Have a good weekend, Mitchell. I hung up. My wife, Jennifer, looked up from her book. Was that your old job? Yeah. Problems? They lock themselves out of their email system. Can you help them? Not without access, which I don't have anymore, because they made me revoke it. She went back to her book. Sounds like their problem. The weekend. Saturday morning, I got 3 more calls from unknown numbers. I didn't answer any of them. They left voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. The MSP company, the virtual CTO, Patricia from HR, all saying the same thing. They couldn't access anything. Email was down. The VPN wasn't working. File servers were inaccessible. They needed my help urgently. I deleted the voicemails. Sunday evening, my personal email received a message from a law firm. The subject line was, Urgent Matter, Titanfall Manufacturing Systems Access. The email was professionally threatening, lots of language about contractual obligations and company property, and potential legal consequences. They were demanding I provide access credentials immediately. I forwarded it to an employment lawyer I'd worked with years ago on a contract review. His name was Marcus Webb, and he told me to call him if I ever needed anything. I called him Monday morning. Daniel, good to hear from you. What's going on? I explained the situation, the layoff, the exit protocols, the lockout, the legal threat. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he started laughing. Marcus, are you still there? Oh, I'm here. Daniel, this is incredible. Incredible? You followed their exit protocols exactly. You documented everything where they told you to document it. You secured everything according to their security policy. You didn't take anything, didn't sabotage anything, didn't delete anything. You just did exactly what they required. That's what I'm telling them, but they're threatening legal action. Let them. You know what they've done? They've created the perfect IT separation failure case study. They fired their entire IT department without proper knowledge transfer procedures. They terminated the one person who understood their infrastructure with same-day notice. They enforced exit protocols that were written by lawyers who don't understand IT systems. And now, they're locked out of their own infrastructure because their own policies were poorly designed. So, I'm not in trouble? Trouble? Daniel, you might be the luckiest guy I've talked to all year. Forward me that legal threat. I'll draft a response. And when they inevitably ask you to consult, I'll draft a consulting agreement. Because they're going to pay you a fortune to fix this. Monday morning, 8:47 a.m., my phone rang. Mitchell again. Daniel, we need to talk. I'm listening. We need your help. The entire company is basically shut down. Email, file servers, VPN, manufacturing systems integration, everything is locked. The MSP can't access anything. We have contracts hanging in the balance. That sounds serious. We're going to miss shipments to Boeing if we can't get the manufacturing systems back online today. We're talking millions of dollars in penalties. Potentially $40 million in contracts at risk. $40 million. I let that number hang in the air. I'm sorry to hear that, Mitchell. Have you tried contacting the system vendors? They might be able to help with password recovery. We've tried everything. The vendors need admin access, which requires credentials we don't have. Daniel, please. We'll pay you consulting rates. Name your price. This was the moment. My consulting rate is $500 per hour. 16-hour minimum, paid up front, plus expenses, plus a contract stating that I'm being hired as an independent consultant, with no liability for the company's current situation, and that my consulting work is voluntary and can be terminated at my discretion. I heard him choke on the other end. $500 an hour, that's 20% of what you're paying the MSP who can't access your systems. And I'm the only person on earth who knows your infrastructure well enough to fix this quickly. The longer you wait, the more money you lose. Boeing penalties alone are probably running $50,000 a day right now. Silence. I need to make some calls. You do that. My lawyer will send over a consulting agreement. Wire the retainer to my account, and I'll be available to start work. I hung up. Jennifer looked at me from across the kitchen table. $500 an hour. Probably going to end up being more, like 80 hours of work. That's $40,000. Her eyes went wide. For fixing their systems? For fixing the problem they created when they fired me without a proper transition plan. You're going to help them? I thought about that. Part of me wanted to let them burn. They'd thrown me away like garbage after 12 years. But $40,000 would cover 6 months of expenses while I looked for a new job. And it wasn't like I was going to sabotage them. I just make them pay properly for my expertise. Yeah, I said. I'm going to help them. For $500 an hour.
Tuesday morning, Marcus called me. They've agreed to your terms. I'm sending over the consulting contract now. Wire transfer for $8,000 should hit your account this afternoon. That's your 16-hour minimum retainer. Once you start work, they'll add additional payments in 8-hour blocks. They actually agreed to $500 an hour. They tried to negotiate down to $300. I told them you weren't interested, and that every day they delayed was costing them exponentially more than your consulting fee. They caved in about 15 minutes. The wire transfer came through at 3:47 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. $8,000. I'd made $94,000 a year working 80-hour weeks for Titanfall. I just made $8,000 in consulting fees before doing a single hour of work. Wednesday morning, I drove to Titanfall's headquarters. Mitchell met me in the parking lot. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Dark circles under his eyes, rumpled shirt, tie loosened. Daniel, thank you for coming. I nodded. The MSP team is here. They'll work with you on whatever you need. Conference room A was full of people. The MSP team, 4 technicians, and their manager, a woman named Diane. The virtual CTO on a video screen. Patricia from HR, there to document everything. Mitchell, hovering anxiously near the door. All right, I said, sitting down at the head of the conference table. Let's assess the situation. What exactly is non-functional? Diane, the MSP manager, pulled up a list on her laptop. Email servers, down. Can't access admin credentials. File servers, locked. Can't authenticate. VPN, non-functional. Can't access configuration. Manufacturing system integration, offline. Can't reach back-end databases. Cloud services, limited access. Several admin accounts locked. Backup systems, can't verify status. No access to the management console. I nodded slowly. And you've tried vendor support? Every vendor requires administrative access credentials we don't have. They can't bypass their own security systems. Okay, the root issue is access to the password management vault. Everything stems from that. Once we recover the vault master password, we can access everything else. Can you recover it? Mitchell asked desperately. Yes, I built a recovery system when I implemented the vault 6 years ago. It requires admin access to the underlying database, which I can get through a backdoor recovery method I set up specifically for this kind of scenario. Diane looked skeptical. A backdoor. A legitimate recovery mechanism, I clarified. IT best practice is to always have a disaster recovery method that doesn't depend on the primary access path. I set this up in case the vault ever became corrupted or inaccessible. I'd actually set it up in case I ever got locked out by mistake. But they didn't need to know that. How long will the recovery take? Mitchell asked. I pulled out my laptop. Give me access to your network for about 2 hours. I wasn't going to make this easy on them. Not after they'd fired me with 4 hours notice. So I worked slowly, methodically, taking breaks, asking questions, making them watch me work for every dollar they were paying. The recovery process was actually relatively straightforward. I connected to their network, accessed the server hosting the password vault database, used a recovery script I'd written years ago to decrypt the master password from the back-end database without needing the master password itself. It was elegant, really. A bootstrap recovery method that bypassed the normal access controls. Within 90 minutes, I had the vault master password. But I didn't tell them right away. I took a coffee break, checked my phone, let them sweat for a bit. At the 2-hour mark, I logged into the password vault. We're in, I announced. The relief in the room was palpable. Now, I said, I'm going to systematically restore access to each system. The MSP team will need to document every credential as we go. This is going to take time. I spent the rest of Wednesday afternoon unlocking systems. Email server. Restored. Took 45 minutes to properly configure and test. File servers. Restored. Another hour to verify permissions and access. VPN. Restored. 30 minutes to reconfigure and test connections. By 5 p.m., the critical systems were functional again. We're operational, I told Mitchell. Email is back up, file access is restored, VPN is working. Your people can work again. He looked like he might cry with relief. What about the manufacturing systems? That's more complex. The integration between your manufacturing equipment and your back-end databases has multiple failure points. I need to check each one. That's going to take another full day minimum. Can you come back tomorrow? I checked my watch. I've been here for 8 hours. You'll need to authorize another payment block if you want me to continue. Mitchell nodded immediately. Done. Whatever you need. Thursday and Friday. Thursday I spent 10 hours tracing through the manufacturing system integrations. The problem was complex. Several systems had gone offline during the lockout, and bringing them back online required careful sequencing to avoid data corruption. I worked methodically, testing each component, documenting everything for the MSP team. By Thursday evening, manufacturing was back online. Friday I spent 8 more hours doing final verification, updating documentation, and training the MSP team on the systems they'd be maintaining going forward. Diane, the MSP manager, was actually pretty sharp. She took detailed notes and asked good questions. This is a complex infrastructure, she said at one point. It is. It was built over 12 years to support very specific requirements. It's not something you can just drop into the cold. The company should never have let you go without a proper transition period. I shrugged. Not my decision to make. By Friday at 5 p.m., everything was functional. Total hours worked, 42 hours. At $500 per hour, $21,000. Minus the $8,000 retainer they'd already paid, $13,000 additional payment. Mitchell processed the payment without argument. As I was packing up my laptop to leave, Mitchell stopped me. Daniel, I need to say something. I waited. This was my fault. Not the PE firm, not Patricia, not the virtual CTO. I pushed for the IT cuts because I thought we could save money with an MSP. I didn't understand what we were losing when we let you go. Okay. For what it's worth, I've recommended to Convergent that we bring you back full-time, CTO position, $140,000 salary, full benefits, whatever you need. I looked at him for a long moment. 12 years of service, fired with 4 hours notice, and now, 3 weeks later, they wanted me back. I appreciate the offer, Mitchell. I really do. But I'm going to pass. His face fell. Can I ask why? Because I don't trust Convergent Capital Partners. They'll bring me back, work me for a year or two, and then cut me again the next time they want to optimize costs. I'm 55 years old. I need stability, not a job that disappears whenever someone runs a spreadsheet. For what it's worth, you handled this with a lot more professionalism than I would have. I just followed the protocols, I said. I walked out of Titanfall Manufacturing for the last time. Epilogue. That was 4 months ago. The final accounting. 42 hours of consulting work. $21,000 in consulting fees. Plus my 4-week severance, $7,200. Plus my accrued vacation payout, $4,600. Total. $32,800 for 3 weeks of unemployment and 1 week of consulting. Not bad, but the real payoff came 6 weeks after I finished the consulting work. Diane, the MSP manager, called me. Daniel, I wanted to let you know. We've been analyzing the infrastructure you built at Titanfall. Very sophisticated for a company that size. Thanks. We're expanding our aerospace and manufacturing practice. We need someone who understands complex IT infrastructure in regulated environments. Would you be interested in a position as our senior solutions architect? Tell me more. It's a senior role. You'd be designing infrastructure for our aerospace and defense clients, mentoring our technical teams. The salary is $135,000 plus bonuses, full remote work, flexible hours, and you'd never be the only person who understands a system. We build redundancy into everything. I took the job. I've been there for 3 months now. The work is interesting. The culture is good. They value expertise and institutional knowledge instead of treating it as a cost to be optimized away. I heard through a former colleague that Titanfall paid the MSP over $200,000 in the 6 months after I left to stabilize and maintain the infrastructure I'd built. They could have kept me for $94,000 a year. Instead, they paid me $21,000 to unlock their systems after they locked themselves out. Then they paid another company $200,000 to maintain what I'd built. Plus, they lost at least $150,000 in Boeing penalties from the 3-day manufacturing shutdown. All in the name of operational efficiency. Sometimes I wonder if Mitchell still works there, if he learned anything from the experience. But mostly I don't think about Titanfall at all anymore. I've got a job I enjoy, working with people who respect expertise. And I've got a great story about the time a company locked itself out of its own systems because they fired the one person who knew how everything worked. All because I followed their exit protocols exactly as written. Sometimes the best revenge really is just doing exactly what they ask, especially when what they ask is perfectly, catastrophically stupid.